Man, it seems like every day we hear something positive about democracy.
Democracy.
America's democracy.
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 Democracy. America's democracy.
Democracy.
From mainstream, lamestream, CIA-infiltrated Operation Mockingbird, MK Ultra media.
And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
And from government sources.
We gather today under the dome of this temple of democracy.
Desecrating our democracy.
For centuries, Americans have fought and died to defend
Democracy.
for the people.
The question of whether our democracy will long endure is both ancient and urgent.
The basis of our democracy.
Total veto power over democracy.
The insurrection was an existential crisis, a test of whether our democracy could survive, and it did.
You're declaring open war on American democracy.
Can our democracy deliver on its promise? Can our democracy deliver to the most pressing needs of our people?
You are the ones interfering in America's elections. You are the ones subverting America's democracy.
Can our democracy overcome the lies, anger, hate, and fears that have pulled us apart?
It's essential in Democratic rhetoric that they claim to support democracy.
That the sun is setting on American democracy.
America's democracy.
The proposal they're putting forward undermines democracy. Democracy is the people electing the people.
He is threatening our democracy.
But what is democracy? Are you for it? And is it good for society?
This is extremely dangerous to our democracy. This is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
People ask me all the time, hey Brian, do you really use that keto elevate stuff and does it really work? The answer is yes and yes. Never in my entire life have I lost body fat so quickly. Not even in my prime at 25, which is over 25 years ago. I'm approaching 54 this year. If you want to support the channel and do your health a favor, grab some with my link in the description.
Let me just ask you guys while we're getting started here. How do you personally define, I mean, apart from the dictionary definition, how do you personally define democracy? Because people talk about democracy all the time, but everybody's got a different view on what democracy is. How do you define democracy? And I think this is truly important because you constantly hear from mainstream media, you constantly hear from Republicans and Democrats, we have to safeguard democracy. We have to promote democracy. Why are we involved in these foreign wars? Because we're spreading democracy. What the heck are we talking about? Because I know people use it synonymously with freedom or liberty, but the way it's lived out is the exact opposite of securing personal liberties. Yeah, I tend to agree with you. Drone Wolf and Alley Cat 1. Drone Wolf says majority rules. Alley Cat 1 says mob rule. 16-ounce ribeye says the tyranny of the 51%. Yeah, tyranny of the majority is another term, another phrase. Democracy is not democratic, says Unterrified. Let me just give you the dictionary definition. The etymology of the word is kind of fascinating. It comes from two words, demos and kratia. Demos just means the people, and kratia means power or rule or control. So they say it's the power of the people. But the question is, what people? Are there any people involved in a democratic or democracy that don't have the power? Are there some who have more power than others and others who have less power, or some people who have no power at all and other people have all the power? So what does it mean? Democratia comes from demos, the people. Kratia means power, rule, or control. So it's rule of the people, supposedly. But what people? Because there have to be people left out of that equation. Is it the minority of people? And within that minority of people, are there some people who don't have power? Is it the majority of people? And within that majority of the people, there are people who don't have the power? I like what Ayn Rand said about the individual. She said the smallest minority on earth is the individual. It's not the black man. It's not the transgender woman. It's not the Hispanic. It's not white people. The smallest minority on the planet is the individual. And she said those who deny individual rights cannot claim to be defenders of minorities. I agree with that. The smallest minority on the planet needs to be protected, and that is the individual. There has to be some kind of safeguard in place in society to protect the individual from the majority, the mob rule scenario. I like what Benjamin Franklin said. He said, democracy is two wolves and a lamb deciding on what to have for dinner. The dictionary definition of democracy is the form of government, which, by the way, government, we have to come to terms with the fact that the word government is as fictitious as Santa Claus, the Easter Bunny, and unicorns. There is no, because government, the way it's lived out, is a certain group of people have rights that you don't have. First question is, where did they get those rights? How come the rest of us don't have those rights? What gives them the right to rule others and others have to submit to that rule? What gives them the idea that they have the moral right to rule others and punish those who don't obey their rule? And these people over here who are going to be ruled have the obligation to submit to that rulership or be rightly punished in the eyes of those who are exerting that force or power. So government, you might as well be saying unicorn. The form of unicorns in which political control, what is politics? Politics is from top to bottom just lies. So we have a whole slew of people who believe in the concept that some people have a higher claim over your life and property than you, which is patently false, guys. Even from the perspective of the Declaration of Independence, they say all men were created equal and have the right to life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness. Well, there are some men who actually do not believe that you and I have the right to life, liberty, property, and the pursuit of happiness because they're constantly trying to steal our property and tap into our time and laboring energies. So the idea of government as it's lived out, as it's activated in the universe, is a total lie. Politics and politicians are scam artists. Politics is a scam. It's the clever and deceptive art of using euphemisms, lies, emotionalism, and fear-mongering in order to dupe average people into accepting and even demanding the chains of their own enslavement from people who are in the unicorn government. So it's amazing that people will go, oh, look, it's in the dictionary. It must be true. The form of unicorns, the form of Easter bunnies, in which charlatans control other people, is exercised by all the people. Let me just read it the way it's written. The form of government in which political control is exercised by all the people, that's not even possible. If you had 100 people in the room, there are going to be people exerting authority and power and control over other people, and those other people won't have a say in the matter. And those people can't rightly be saying that they're exercising in power and control for their own benefit as they're being punished by the majority. This is all so freaking fictitious. It's disgustingly fictitious. The form of government in which political control is exercised by all the people, either directly through elected representatives. What if you didn't elect that representative? What if you absolutely did not want that representative representing you? Well, if you're in the minority, if you're, if you've come against the majority, you have no say in the matter. So the reason I'm saying all this is because I asked the question the other day on my Twitter page. By the way, if you're not following me on Twitter, it's High Impact Flicks. Please come on over there. This is good discussion and good dialogue. That's why I wanted to make this video, because I want to hear what you guys have to say about this. I am completely open to the possibility that I am 100% wrong about this. But it seems to me the way democracy is written, the way it is defined in our modern dictionaries and even dictionaries in the past, the way the etymology spells out that it's supposed to be the power of the people or power for the people or the rule or the control of the people, leads to many, many questions that completely blows the idea of government and politics and democracy completely out of the water, and yet nobody asks these questions. I would like to do a man on the street where I put a microphone in people's face and go, what is your idea of democracy? Do you think it's a positive thing? Do you think it's a negative thing? Do you think society would collapse if we didn't have democracy? I mean, literally, people think, oh my God, what would we do? We wouldn't have lights. There'd be no electricity. There'd be no telephones. There'd be no clean running water. There'd be no bridges. There'd be no roads, no schools. Without government, what would we do? Without a vile band of evildoers foisting their will against us, against our will. So what I wrote the other day on Twitter is, how do you personally define democracy, and are you for it? The first response was, in short, the right to self-determination, as long as you do not infringe upon the rights of others, I am unswervingly for it. Anonymous aficionado says, I'm totally against it. Democracy is just a different coat of paint on tyrannical rule by, quote, important people of authority. And the word authority, the only legitimate role of authority that I can think of in existence, and I could completely be wrong about this, but the only legitimate authority figure that you can possibly have in life is a parent-child relationship. And when I say authority, I mean the legitimate right to rule over another human being. A mom and a dad ruling over a child until that child is old enough to take care of itself. And the reason a parent, a mother and a father rule over or have exercise authority over a child is truly for, not just stated, but truly for the protection and the upbringing and the education and the good of that child, that individual. If you can think of another legitimate form of authority where one human exercises power over another human being, let me know. Maybe regular non-criminals over criminals, because criminals have to have authority or power exercised over them. It's the concept of guard with jealous attention the public liberty. Suspect anyone who comes near that precious jewel. Unfortunately, nothing will preserve it but downright force. And when you give up that force, you are utterly ruined. So regular people who are not criminals, who have not exercised their will against the will of another person or violated another person's will, can, in my mind, legitimately exercise authority and power over those who are trying to steal the liberty of others, whether they're trying to rape somebody, steal from somebody, damage somebody's property and not pay for it, or take somebody's life. I think that's a legitimate exercise of a man or woman exercising power over somebody who wants to harm other people. So a parent and just regular people who are not criminals exercising their power over a criminally minded individual. If you can think of another legitimate form of authority in the realm of humanity, I'm not talking about having authority over your dog or your cat, because obviously we have dominion over the animals, but I'm just talking about human to human. So Anonymous Aficionado says, I'm totally against it. Somebody had to say it, says democracy is mob rule. It leaves no space for individual rights. It puts the creation of society above the creator, the people, and it has effectively destroyed this country. Democracy, this person right here says, and I wrote a response to this one. Gail says, and I'm not dogging on Gail or anything, but she says, this is her opinion, democracy is a self-organizing people what the Bill of Rights was attached to protect. Representative democracy is one in which people self-organize to choose representatives from their ranks, then organize to champion issues, the precise opposite of violent mobs. Is it the precise opposite of a violent mob? What if you don't choose that representative, but the majority did, and that representative makes a law and says everybody has to follow it, but you didn't choose that representative, you don't acknowledge that law, and you just want to ignore it? Can you ignore it without punishment? If you didn't vote for that representative, if you didn't cast your ticket into the hat and say, yeah, I want that representative ruling over me or making decisions for my life, and then that representative makes decisions for everybody's life, what about the 1/3 or the 49%, the 49.9% who didn't want that representative representing them? Is there an opt-out clause for those people? In a democracy? No. In a constitutional republic? No. In a constitutional representative republic? No. There is no out button. It's like, this is the law of the land. You got to follow it. If you don't follow it, you get punished, or you get fined in some way, or you get thrown in prison, you get arrested, you get detained, your liberties get taken from you because you didn't obey the rule of the majority. You didn't obey the rule of law. So what I said to her was the Bill of Rights included to protect democracy or detail the limitations of the representatives? Also, what if people don't want a representative championing issues? Will the self-organizers allow you to opt out of written laws without punishment? If not, isn't that mob rule? Seems to me it is. Seems to me it's mob rule if the 2/3 doesn't let the 1/3 do whatever they want to, as long as they're not harming or threatening to harm anybody. And again, guys, I think this is a super important discussion. That's why when this video, I'm doing this live right now just for everybody who's watching this later, but I am going to put this on my YouTube channel, BitChute, and all that kind of stuff. But leave your comments in the comment section below. If you think I'm in error, let me know. And if you think there's, how should society be organized? Because, there's nothing wrong with organization. There's nothing wrong with voluntary cooperation. There's everything wrong with coercion and violent force against people who don't want their will violated. The only time another human being has the legitimate right and freedom to come into somebody's life is if that person right there is being a criminal, that is violating the will of another, in my opinion. The idea of, C says, the idea of government of the people for the people is a fantasy with a lot of large holes, especially if you include corporations as people, which is ridiculous, which is the case in many Western capitalist states. But at least it's better than government of the people for individuals or corporations. True says, straight cancer. I do not believe that it exists or ever did, except maybe in some native countries across the world. I'm in Scotland and speaking about the entire West, not just the US. That was from Indy. Planting Liberty Seed says, mob rule. No way I would ever be for that. And if democracy is mob rule, if what is usually accredited to Benjamin Franklin, that it's two wolves and a lamb deciding on what to have for dinner, I don't see how any morally based individual with a sound, rational mind could actually support democracy or even believe in it. Because you have to believe democracy, because it doesn't appear to it. True democracy, legitimate democracy, as it's written, as the etymological makeup suggests, is not something that looks like it has any kind of moral footing. Go Hard says, it is whatever the people decide it is without understanding the concept. Not sure I can completely grasp that right there. Justin True says, mob rule, no. The illusion of choice, says Muna. Michael Stanley says, majority rule, nope. David Jensen says, a democracy where 50% plus one run a country is the worst form of government. A constitutional republic is a model where the majority cannot strip the rights of the minority. And so I asked him to clarify that, because it seems to me that a constitutional republic, because the Constitution talks about the 2/3 vote. The two-thirds vote is all about majority rule. So I want to understand, if there's a difference, I want to understand what the difference is between what people call democracy and a constitutional republic and a constitutional representative republic, because it just seems like word salad. You're using different words and it's a game of semantics. And at the end of the day, it's really mob rule. It's majority rule. So I need a clarification on that. Tana says democracy is the opposite of individualism. In my opinion, the individual is paramount. And I agree with that. That's what freedom is all about. The individual is paramount. Somebody just said in the chat that Facebook is down worldwide. Huh. That's interesting. I'm trying to open Facebook. R. Mayfield just said Facebook is down worldwide. That's interesting. That's very interesting. Yeah. Oops, something went wrong. We're working to get it back. We'll fix it as soon as we can, it says. Interesting. Thanks for that, R. Mayfield. By the way, we are live on High Impact Flicks on D Live. If you guys enjoy these videos, please subscribe and share them. If you get something out of them. Democracy is a way to achieve total control of the masses, planned step by step in advance by the elites. They have a bunch of tools to use, built by us, TV, social media, schools, etc. Hexadron says, mob rule. Nope. Motorcycle clubs have more of a democracy than this government does, says Rakeem Fox. Slappy Nuts says mob rule. 51% decides for the rest of the 49% BS. Well, it ain't a republic, says Rebel. B-Rad says democracy is two wolves and a lamb, voting on what to have for dinner. I like the end of it. I don't know. I don't know if Benjamin Franklin said this, but whoever coined it, it's pretty funny because there's a lot of truth in it. Liberty is a well-armed lamb contesting the vote. Jake says pretty much the same thing. What difference does it make? There is no democracy anywhere on this planet. This is a fully fascist planet. So doesn't fascism have an element of democracy in it? It seems like it does. I don't want to drone on and on in this. You know, it seems like people get all stuck in the weeds and just go off the rails on specific definitions of communism and fascism and Marxism and Leninism and Maoism. The bottom line is it's all those communism, socialism, fascism, Marxism, those are wealth redistribution programs. There are people at the top who are the elites who do benefit from the ignorance of the masses. Fascism is in there as well. It's literally robbing people and redistributing their wealth. It's a wealth redistribution plan, and it's theft. More specifically, it's done by the barrel of a government gun, so it's extortion. It's extorting the people so that the few can benefit, or the few can benefit off the ignorant of the many. Yeah, it's all authority. You will respect my authority. And it seems to be illegitimate. So I wanted to find out, what is your definition of democracy, and are you for it? Leave your thoughts for the Global Thought Police in the comment section below, because it's interesting. It's something we need to talk about. All of fake stream, CIA infiltrated Operation Mockingbird, MK Ultra media talks about it. They promote it. They act like it's a good thing. Politicians on the left and the right want to safeguard it. They want you to believe in it and buy onto it. Democracy seems like one of the most corrupt things in the entire world. And just because, what if 99% of the world was for democracy? Does that make it right? When in the history of mankind has the majority ever gone in the right direction? I like what I'm going to close this with a quote by Larkin Rose. Total credit to him. This guy has some succinct, powerful thoughts that I think need to be shared with the world. He said democracy, he talks about a myth, the myth that democracy is freedom. And to disprove that, he says gang rape is democracy in action. A majority forcing its will on a minority. Even if political elections actually represented the will of the majority, which they don't, democracy would be inherently violent, immoral, and illegitimate. Political voting is always about a majority forcing its will on a minority. Even if theoretically that left the majority in freedom, which it never actually does, obviously the minority would not be free. If you disagree with that, let me know. If you agree with it, let me know. I'm going to try to start a new YouTube channel later today or tomorrow. I was talking to somebody about it yesterday, San Joaquin Valley Transparency, and I think I'm going to start one that's going to be dedicated to just man on the street talking to cops. And by the way, guys, a lot of people think that I'm a cop hater. I'm not a cop hater. Cops are human beings, and I don't hate human beings. What I do hate is injustice. And I don't care if you're wearing a uniform badge and a gun come with the authority of the state. If you're being unjust, you're being a garbage pail human being, and you don't want that stuff done to yourself, and you're being a total hypocrite. It doesn't matter to me. So I don't hate cops. I'm not a politician hater. But if you're being corrupt, you need to be called out for your corruption. So what I was going to do is I was going to start a YouTube channel that's just dedicated to me and Trish going man on the street, talking to people, trying to figure out what they think about things, why they think about it, what they're like, asking them, what is your opinion of democracy? How would you define democracy? Is democracy a good thing? Is democracy a bad thing? How is democracy lived out? So that's a couple examples, and I want to get you guys involved as the audience too. Leave your comments about what kind of questions can be asked on these man on the street, man and woman on the street. Says I live Beagles. That's exactly right. Men and women, a man and a woman on the street. Maybe we should call the YouTube channel "Man and Woman on the Street." Yeah. Trish goes, yeah. Give me some street creds.
Hey guys, we know with the way things have been going, it can get really interesting really quick. So make sure you and your family have a long-term storable food supply. Support the channel and get $50 off with my link in the description while you still can.